We are going to switch gears a little bit and talk about a patient of the future. Our next speaker is Kim Goodsell. Kim Goodsell is a former world-ranked endurance athlete and UCSD dropout who continued her biological behavior studies in vivo. Her body became her laboratory and remote environments became her lab. And what's neat to know about Kim is that she used to be somebody who was technology averse. She stayed far away from technology, but not anymore. Today, Kim is known as a digital patient, personal molecular researcher, activist in the digital patient revolution, and co-founder of Pro Ability Walk Art, which is a social entrepreneurship dedicated to the design of connected pedestrian-assisted technology that enables people from all walks of life to walk. She co-invented ROVA, a mobility platform driving positive health outcomes by connecting its users with fundamental function. Please join me in welcoming Kim Goodsell.
So I'd like to introduce you all to the digital patient revolution. And I'm going to share with you what tomorrow's future of medicine looks like from a patient of the future who's reportedly here today. But before I do, I want to introduce you to my intimate relationship with the process of aging through Sam Burns. Now, Sam he actually passed away last January of old age. He was 17 years old. So while aging is not a disease, Sam and I actually share a genetic disease of aging. It's called a laminopathy, and laminopathies mimic the normal but accelerated degenerative processes of aging, and they're caused by a mutation in the LMNA gene. You're not supposed to have to remember that, but it's an interesting gene because Sam has a systemic laminopathy, which is much more serious, while I have a less severe mutation that involves the degeneration of the heart, muscle, bone, and nerve tissues. And I have two very rare phenotypes as a consequence of this genetic mutation. In 1997, I became an unlikely digital patient pioneer when I became predisposed to sudden cardiac death and cardiac heart failure. And I was implanted with one of the most powerful digital medical sensors on the market back in 1997. It still is today. It's an implantable cardioverter defibrillator. To give you some sense of how ironic this is, my husband and I have spent a good part of 30 years exploring wilderness unplugged and resisting digital technology. As Danelle had mentioned, I didn't get an iPhone until very recently, and it was because I wanted to get a device to measure my heart. So anyway, I quickly transitioned from being a seasoned athlete to becoming compromised athlete, and to being ambulatory compromised, to being disabled. So the lamina proteins play a crucial role in the differentiation of adult stem cells, and you hear a lot about stem cell therapy today. They're responsible for the regeneration of tissue. And as we age, those pools naturally decrease, and so that's why we start getting accelerated processes of degeneration that we don't see with children. So mutations on this gene are extremely rare. You have a better chance of getting hit by an asteroid than to have these diseases. But even though they're extremely rare, this gene has engendered a tremendous amount of interest in the biological sciences of aging because it appears that they actually form the regulatory headwaters of the downstream cascade of aging mechanisms. And it's anticipated if we could understand the function of the LMNA gene, we could get a better insight into the mechanisms of aging, which is a costly, chronic, lethal condition common to us all, even though it's very rare disease. So we're confronting a global medical crisis today. So why the digital patient revolution? I'm going to explain why. So preventative chronic disease is coupled by an aging population, and it's become the greatest threat to our national economic health. It's crippling our healthcare system, and it's led to a suboptimal quality of life and a loss of human potential. As people live longer, the number of years spent living with disability and having ailments and depression have increased. And we're confronting, this is a huge problem for our economic health, for all of the health of our nation, the health actually of the global economy. 90% of elders want to age in place within their homes and within their communities, but for those of them who suffer with chronic illnesses, the Medicare policy doesn't support it. And aging well has unfortunately become, or is becoming, a luxury of those who are wealthy. And while the merits of in-home policy restrictions are being debated, there's a consensus among consumers, policymakers, researchers, the elderly, and their caregivers that it's important to all stakeholders to promote preventative medicine and to support aging in place, because this is a particularly expensive and dangerous bed. So what are we doing for that? Well, presently the U.S. is investing 1% of their health care expenditures in preventative medicine. The vast majority of medical investment is allocated towards reactive medicine, and we're medically managing and pharmaceutically treating people who are already sick. How successful is that strategy, and what's the rate of return on this kind of investment? Well, this is pretty interesting. It kind of blew my mind when I found out these figures. On an average, it costs $4 billion in research money to develop one new medicine that will go to market. The staggering costs are a major contributing factor to our escalating healthcare costs. The average number of prescription medications taken by people over 65, or 5 to 6, 1.6 million people will be hospitalized by its side effects, and 160,000 people will die from their reaction. 95% of the drugs fail to be both effective and safe, and this is not a good investment, obviously. And to give you some sense of, real tangible sense of the cost, 1 ton of gold equals $64.3 million. At $5 billion in development costs for one drug, an ounce of prevention could be worth 78 tons of gold. What you see pictured right here is 22 tons. I couldn't even fit it into the photograph. So medical treatment is the third leading cause of death. I don't know how many of you realize that, so we really want to look at staying away from having even to have medical treatment. It's very dangerous. So there are policies being introduced to Congress to address the in-home support, keeping people out of the hospital, but the congressional effectiveness is falling to levels not seen in recent history. And so the likelihood of amending the Medicare policy that favors aging in place is highly improbable in the very near future. But the future of the home, and actually I just added this to my slide because I heard Delep say it, the future home will become the connected medical center. And I thought that was a really good point, because that is what's happening, and I'll show you that. So Medicare home policies will be amended to support aging in place, if not on their own initiative, but in tow behind a digital consumer healthcare movement. We already have the technology today to remotely monitor exquisitely and comprehensively at home the same thing that we do in a critical care room. So the patient can transmit their vital signals in real time to their doctor from their home on their smartphone or on their iPads. This preempts the need for going to the hospital unless somebody's really critically ill. So Dr. Topol, one of the world's foremost cardiologists and an expert in the exploding world of wireless medicine, noted that these days I'm actually prescribing a lot more apps than I am medications. And you can take the iPhone and you can turn it into a lab on a chip. We're able now, and this is now, we can currently measure respiratory function, blood tests, saliva tests, urine tests, sweat tests, skin tests, eye exams. And this explosion in technology is going to make medicine cheaper and much more accessible. The iPhone can be modified into a cardiogram, into an echocardiogram, a glucose monitor, that's just to name a few. And the future of the patient-doctor relationship is often in question. You're like, what will this be like? Well, will technology get in the way of the patient-doctor relationship? I think it's going to be a lot more intimate because we can share the results in real time, making the office visit an enjoyable and much more engaging experience. And it doesn't have to be in person. Today we have telemedicine. We can actually have virtual consults over the phone, and the patient can take a wireless ultrasound device to their home. They can measure, they can actually do an echocardiogram from home, which is free, which normally costs hundreds of dollars, close to thousands of dollars. And they can view it together with a physician online. So the future of medicine is going to be wireless, and this technology in patient management promises to have a radical impact on aging in place, the effectiveness and efficiency of individualized care, economic resources, both personal and public, hospital resources, human resources, patient caregivers, and healthcare providers. The global medical crisis is embedded in the IT revolution, and this information technology revolution has precipitated the digital medical revolution. There's hyper-innovative digital technology, consumer wireless medical sensors, ubiquitous connectivity, online democratization of information, social networks, and consumer genomic sequencing have converged to drive a profound shift in the power and the organization structure within medicine, and it's ignited a digital patient revolution. So what is the digital patient revolution? It's a digital consumer-driven healthcare movement. It's a movement that is more than just a healthcare movement. This is a human potential movement. For the first time, we have the power in our hands to drive our medical care and our outcomes. The digital patient revolution is reinventing medicine in the way in which it's delivered. The shift in the power and organizational structure of medicine is causing an upheaval in the ranks of medicine, which is most aptly captured in the title of this new book called The Patient Will See You Now. So for a variety of reasons, this is pretty interesting. I think it was cost, retail clinics, virtual doctor visits, the do-it-yourself care. Between 2009 and 2011 in the United States, the number of physician visits fell 17%, despite the aging population and their high density of comorbidities that are co-segregating with this aging population. Fast Company had an article that asserted that the idea of going down to your doctor's office is going to become so foreign, it's going to be like going to your video store. Physician office visits are on their way out. Cisco surveyed over 1,500 Americans and found that already 70% prefer a virtual physician's visit over a physical. And we can kind of understand why, because currently it takes weeks and in some cities months to see your physician. And when you finally get to see the physician, you're going to wait, on average, 62 minutes in the office, and then you're going to get a short 7-minute return visit, maybe 12 if you're a new consultation. So new business models are beginning to emerge, and things that are the equivalent of Uber, which is part of the share economy where people are sharing their cars that aren't in use. We're now seeing those models emerge in medicine for house calls, which is offering doctors on demand on a 24/7 basis. We have area body networks. This is a new level of support for aging in place where patients who are in their home, if they should fall, there's motion detectors that will be able to even contact your daughter to tell you that something's wrong. It can contact emergency personnel. Unplugged communication can provide medical oversight to vulnerable individuals, enabling safe and a secure independence while actively participating in their community. And this is actually a picture of a pedestrian assistant technology that has mounted to it an iPhone that has apps that while you're exercising, you can measure some very critical data like your oxygen saturation, your respiratory, your heart rate, and so on. And if there's a problem, you actually can transmit that to your physician. So what will the senior of the future look like? Well, in the words of Marshall McLuhan, he said, "We shape our technologies and our technologies shape us." And there couldn't be anything more true than that, because that's what it's done to me for sure. The senior of the future will become digitized, genomified, actualized, and quantified. The digital patient revolution presents tremendous potential in the war of the escalating health costs and in successful prevention of, and management of chronic disease and aging in place within the community. Today, I capture in real time my heart rhythm data at the point of need through the first FDA-approved wireless heart monitor called an AliveCore, and it's actually a case that fits on the back of my iPhone. So if there's any need for concern, I can actually send this off for a remote analysis to get analyzed by a board-certified cardiologist for $12. And I get the results of the report while I'm still on the road, still riding my bike. And that allows me to manage, I have a particularly agitated heart that doesn't like to go fast. So it's episodic. So some days I really can go fast. Other days I can send this in if there's cause for concern, and it will tell me that better slow down. Let's not sprint up that hill. So this allows me to manage the risk of my sudden cardiac death while I'm exercising. So in closing, I'd like to offer a cogent example of just how actionable this real-time data can be, not only in day-to-day management of disease, but in preempting potentially catastrophic events. So, I think I skipped a film. Oh yeah, no, I did, sorry. Not ready to give you that one yet. So recently, my mom began to experience a particularly alarming set of cardiac symptoms. She was strangely apathetic, and so I took her EKG, and her heart rate was in the 30s. Her legs were purple, she was arrhythmic, and her blood pressure was 191/96, and I suggested going to the ER. But this is her idea of what the ER looks like. My mother hates going to doctors. So she refused, and she said, "Honey, can't we just make an appointment? I'm fine. Just let's make an appointment." So there was a delicate negotiation on my part, and I was losing because this is what she really had conjured up in her mind of what she didn't want to go through. And she was tired too. So I felt the risk was way too high, and I took her EKG on my AliveCore, and I sent it in for an analysis, and I shared the results with her, code red. This got her attention. And seeing the real-time data eliminated the confounding variables of my subjectivity against her subjectivity that she's fine, and I'm saying, no, you're not fine. And now she's on board. She's getting ready to go to the ER. Now, what's really cool about this is I had this great idea. Well, I'm just going to call the physician on call, the cardiac physician on call, and I'm going to talk to him about what's coming in. So the report gave the evidence I needed to present her case, and I relayed my mother's real-time vitals and her EKG results. And while I was still on the phone, I emailed him the reports, and he confirmed that she was at risk, and she should come in right away. And the delicate negotiation process with my mother was a success. Clarity fostered a consensus by all stakeholders through the evidence of real-time data. And when we arrived, the physician had pre-admitted her. So we bypassed the emergency room for evaluation. This minimalized her fear and the stress of the situation. It freed up the ER personnel for space for really urgent emergencies, and it saved the Medicare system thousands of dollars. So that's the rosy dawn that I see in tomorrow's medicine and the promise of in-home support for the senior of the future. Already we can see it, and this new model of having critical data and information when and where we need it is rising. So welcome to the digital patient revolution. Thank you.